Brief comparison of the Galaxy S10 versus the S10e, just to sort of go over what is actually different with each device when you're choosing, because both of these phones right now are actually around the same price. You can find both of these phones in that $200 price range. The S10e a little bit lower, but essentially, you know, the same price. So let's go ahead and go over so you can make the right decision. So I want to start off really with the build quality here, because I think this is the most important thing, because the size matters here since you're comparing two phones that are super similar in terms of specifications. So the size is kind of the big difference here. The S10e is the more compact device, and the question is it small enough over the S10? So you can see here, they're both glass and metal devices. They're both IP68 dust and water resistant. But you can see the S10e is actually a little bit thicker than the S10 as well, which is something that I've noticed. And the S10 is slightly taller. Now, when it comes to ports and everything like that, you do have a slight difference when it comes to hardware. So on the S10, you have a in-display fingerprint sensor on here, as you can see. And on the S10, you have the physical one built into the power button. Now, it really comes down to personal preference. The physical one is, you know, slightly faster than the in-display one, but also the in-display one is super accurate as well. It's not like it's slow by any means. I'm super impressed with it. As far as the camera setup, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but you have a dual camera setup versus a triple camera setup as well, so that's a difference with the hardware as well. Also, pretty much the same speaker, headphone jack setup going on right here. Both run USB Type-C as well. Now, the displays here are the important thing about choosing between these two. So you have a smaller 5.8-inch dynamic AMOLED display on the S10e. It's 1080p 438 for the PPI. It has the punch hole, but it is also completely flat. Now, compared to the S10, you have a 6.1-inch dynamic AMOLED display, HDR10+, but it's a 1440p display or 2K display with 550 for the PPI. And it has a slight curve to it, as you can see here. Not a bad curve, but just a slight curve. And they both have the punch hole on the right-hand side. So I would say go with the S10e if you are somebody that really, really wants a smaller device. Like, you don't want a device that you're gonna have to sort of like, you can sort of use with one hand easier. The S10 is a device that is also kind of compact for today's standards, because remember, most phones coming out today are 6.5 to 6.8 inches. This being 6.1 is still kind of compact. So if you want something that's relatively kind of small, but you also don't want something that's too big, the S10 is definitely a great display size as well. But as far as color, they both pretty much look identical. The S10 is slightly a little bit more saturated. And also, if you pull up like a 1440p video, or if you're just looking at icons, if you look really close, the S10 will be the slightly sharper display. But again, you have to look up close. Like from this distance I'm looking at it, you would not be able to tell the difference. They both look like the same display. It's only until you sort of like pull up a video, or you sort of like look at stuff really close up, is where you'll see that actual difference. So like I was saying, I didn't want to focus on specs too hard, because they're the same phone in terms of power. You can see how close the single core and the multi-core is actually a little bit stronger on the S10, and I think that's because of the RAM. If you get an 8 gig version, you'll probably get the same score. But yeah, so they both run Android 11. They both have the Snapdragon 855, Adreno 640, micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage on both. But the difference is, on the base model you get 8 gigs of RAM, and on the base model on this one you get 6 gigs of RAM. So that is a slight difference. And like I said, for those who just want to see like a speed test, boom, pretty much the same. Boom, again, same. S10e actually got it there. S10e looked like it kind of got it there. Yeah, so they're pretty much on par with each other. I would imagine that the S10 got it there. I would imagine that the S10 would obviously be better for multitasking, so that's something to take into consideration. 8 gigs versus the, 6 gigs. I do want to mention like the gaming experience on here as well. And again, it's the exact same. It doesn't, the RAM doesn't really matter. These are the graphics that you're going to get on both smooth, extreme, FPS, extreme, extreme, and then you can do ultra HD. So you're essentially getting the same pretty much gaming performance. Like I said, the only difference that you'll notice is the screen, obviously. Screen sizes are going to be different, but there's no real difference in terms of gaming performance here. Alright, so your additional features and stuff like that are again going to be the same here. You have your secure folders on both. Samsung desktop support, screen recording is on here. Dolby Atmos, everything is identical on both of these devices. Even your wireless power sharing is on here as well. So if I go ahead and charge my S10 up, or charge like a wireless pair of headphones up, whatever you want to do, you do have that option on both of these guys, which is awesome. Alright, so I do want to discuss the image quality on here. It's pretty much the same. So if you're looking for like the S10 to be better than the S10e as far as taking pictures, it's pretty much the same. The only difference with the S10 is that you can see they both have an ultra wide, but you also have a third option on here with the S10 for that telephoto lens. So you can see I can do 2x and still get a really crispy shot. And on the S10 I don't have that option on the S10e. As far as the camera specifications, I'll go ahead and start with the S10e. You do have a 12 megapixel standard, 60 megapixel ultra wide, 4K video, and you also have a 10 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K. Overall, you're getting great photos with the S10e, and like I said, they both take the exact same photos. And you get good detail, good dynamic range. The ultra wide is pretty close to the main lens as well. Both these phones will outperform any phone, budget phone that came out this year with $200 price tag or close to it. So in the same story for the S10, the same 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto, that is the additional camera, 16 megapixel ultra wide as well, 4K video on the front and back, 10 megapixel selfie. Again, takes the exact same photo, so there's no real difference in terms of image quality that I can see. They both do the same exact thing. Alright, so lastly would be battery life. So this is an area that is slightly improved, but really not by much on the S10. So it has a 3,400 milliamp battery with 15 watt charging, wireless charging, and like I said, reverse wireless charging. And then on the S10e, you have a slightly smaller 3,100 milliamp battery, and then you have 15 watt charging with wireless charging and reverse wireless charging as well. So again, it is going to slightly outperform the S10e, but honestly, you're getting close to the same amount of screen on time. The S10, if you use it heavy, 5-6 hours. If you're light, and the S10e is similar to that, but you could get like squeeze 4 hours of screen on time if you use it heavy. And then if you're a lighter user, you can do 5. I've almost gotten up to 6 hours with this phone too. So a slightly better battery life, but honestly not by much. So yeah, that is pretty much it, guys. That is it. So the only real difference really comes down to the screen and the telephoto lens. Slightly bigger battery, but not a big deal. So what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know. I'll catch you guys in the next one.